text, because I felt like this project was all about giving agency to people who were incarcerated through literature and through getting to write their own stories. And so what I did last night, because I was feeling a little bit strange about speaking for them, is I asked them to say, if you could come to the University of Chicago and say something to the people of the University of Chicago, what would you say? And so I got a few responses from them. And at the end we had a workshop kind of similar to fundamentals. It was 10 weeks, and we met twice a week. And at the end, we put together a little book, which we called a literary criminal almanac. And and it's both, I think, scary and funny, and it's sort of about the hope that polyphonic writing can be a liberating process for both coming out of prison and for us to challenge our misconceptions about what it means for a person to be in prison. And so I'd like to read part of a rough translation I have of Sergei, who gave a presentation on the allegory of the cave. And I studied Plato, but I think people coming out of prison taught me more about Plato than maybe I would have ever been able to learn otherwise. So this is the paper I'm going to read from. And it's about another person who was also writing about his experience in coming out of prison and Plato's allegory of the cave. Yesterday, I read Sasha Margolin's words about his release from prison. I saw similarities in them with Plato's thought. The mood was somehow even, writes Alexander. Yes, slightly elevated, not monotonous camp life after all, but even. It's strange. I step out of the dark vestibule. The sun hits my eyes from above, from the snow, from everywhere. Almost blind, I blink, but it's not tears. I do not feel almost anything. It seems that everything is going as it should. Alexander accompanies his release with the almost pagan rite. He burns his robe as if to part with this unnecessary experience forever. Fire burns cloth. The light from it illuminates the transition from one world to another, but the past does not burn. At the end of the story, Alexander writes, the experience gained over the last 3 years will surface time and time again, as well as the hurt and disappointments of that time. Black like the tail of a crow, there are spots on the bright picture of today's life. When Polichovich was released, I came up with the phrase, some part of me will go with you, and part of you will stay here. Part of me was left there, a black dead crow in the loops of barbed wire, forever. About 10 years have passed since my release. The experience of my imprisonment always stays with me. Finding myself in different situations, I return to it. Even now, I do not have a firm conviction of where the cave for me is, there or here. Among the terrifying pressure, violence, and psychological torture, I sometimes felt myself to be free in a way that I cannot feel here. And it remains a question for me. Will I again be able to see the sun about which Plato writes without suffering? And on the other side of your page, this is 3 responses that I got from 3 of our writers about how they would all like you all to hear their texts and their books. So Alexander writes, we read Stephen King with a smile. Olim writes, we the people who were in prison in their own country, no one needs us. But that's not the main thing. But the fact that it is impossible to get a normal job because you are a former prisoner. Big thanks to that person who came up with this grant. I'm sure that everyone who participates in these readings will be able to feel our emotions, fears, hopes in the texts. Personally, I really wanted to come to Chicago and take part in the readings. I think that next year we will definitely meet each other, and I assure you it will not be in the worst day of your life. Come visit us in Moscow. I'll show you a different city than what the tourists see. Hugs. Take care of yourself. Follow the law. And Eduard writes, and Eduard actually sent me on this cell phone from prison yesterday, so I feel especially lucky to have this. Hello from across the ocean. Let them read it and reflect. Protect your freedom. We're all different. We're all equal.